Hello, this is Dale Matthews. I'm joined by Mike Jones. This is Inside News. This is the place where, if you're interested in politics in Josephine County, at this moment in time in the history of the world, this is the place to be because we know what's happening. That's the theory, Mike. Do we know what's happening?
Because we are being responsive to citizens.
Uh, yes, I believe that we are being responsive to citizens, and that's part of what we're going to talk about tonight is increasing that responsiveness to citizens. So
actually, I'm not responsive to citizens at all. I'm just throwing my opinion out there, and so I don't really care what other people think.
Yes, he cares. He's an old softy, or he's
I don't care.
He's a bear, or he's something. Okay,
get off my lawn.
Right. Just so that you know, we're going to do the best that we can all this week to carry the political events that are happening live for the whole week.
Tomorrow
night, if it's possible, right. Tomorrow night are all the candidates for position 3. Tired of candidates yet? Even I'm tired of candidates. And that's going to be for position 3 at the Ann Basker Auditorium with the Courier. Now, we'll be in the audience like so many other people with cameras, except ours will be a little bit different, and our intention is to carry it live. The next night is the budget hearing, the first of the budget hearings on the 19th. We intend to be in the audience, and we intend to carry that live. The next night is Courier Forum for the candidates for position 2. We'll be in the audience, and we intend to carry it live.
That's going to be slightly more problematic in the respect that Dale is a participant.
Right. Yeah. It's better than being an expectorant. Okay, and then on Thursday and Friday will be the IV Forum. I'm not expecting a lot out of this, Mike. I'm really not. And that will be at the county building in Illinois Valley. Expecting all kinds of good things from the people. It's the folks that are running it are just got a screw loose.
Whatever.
So
you never know. They might surprise us.
They're going to surprise us. So there's going to be a lot, and we're the center of that activity, or at least we're bringing it to you so that you can see. So I told you about my misadventures with Sean Hall. We've mentioned names here, you see, with the Daily Courier. He'll most likely be one of the questioners tomorrow. You know how it works. You fill out a 3x5 card with your good question, and then they throw it away and they ask their own questions. And so when he interviewed me for my candidacy, he started arguing with me. It was like, wait a minute. You're not going to argue with me, are you? You've asked me what my opinion is, and let me tell you what it is. Well, this just happened with Ray Smith. Raymond Smith was telling me that he had also interviewed with the guy from the Courier and had a similar response. Now, Ray doesn't get much of a chance to watch this show because he's out in IV, and their internet connection is a little bit iffy every once in a while. So he said, so I'm talking with the guy, with this Sean Hall, and he starts arguing with me. And Ray says, well, but that's my opinion. Well, I disagree, says Sean Hall.
So what? What's the article about, for God's sake?
Yes, exactly. And so he's telling him a little bit more. And he says, well, I don't think you should feel that way. Hey, wait a minute. What kind of article is this here, bud?
Fair and balanced there at the Courier.
Now, you know that Raymond Smith is kind of a low-key guy, right? He's not going to get into an argument with anybody. He's got strong opinions, and he doesn't mind telling you. And if you listen to what he's saying, it's fiery, but his delivery is kind of like fairly low-key. Yeah, right. And so you got to check him every once in a while, right? It's fairly low-key. And so it goes on like this. And so this Sean Hall is asking, well, what would you do about about law enforcement? And he starts telling me, he said, well, that won't work. And he's like, hey, wait a minute. This is what I think. Well, what about this and that and the other thing and other thing? And finally, Ray just has it. And he says, listen, as I did, and Ray doesn't know I said this to Sean Hall when he interviewed me. why don't you just write your own article if that's the way that you feel about this? Because this is not
Right.
supposed to be editorial.
You could just make up stuff that I said, and you know.
I've had that happen with the Courier. I've had that happen.
Well, they're going to do it anyway. You know, they're gonna construe it in the way that fits the storyline that they're pushing. So.
Well, remember when it took them days to write that story that we introduced you here, and days later they finally wrote a story about the SRS payments and how many counties there were, and that were getting SRS payments. They got the number wrong, but they always get the number wrong. Always get the number wrong. And they also talked about, you know, activity in Washington, D.C. The story was that the commissioners have been denying it all along, while they said they knew that it was true. They admitted they knew that it was true, but they've been denying it. Of course, the Courier's not going to write the story. They're writing, you know, well, here's this other thing, you know, okay, it's happening. But the first sentence on the front page on a regular article was, call it insecure rural schools, period. This is not journalism. It's editorializing, okay, and newspapers have a long history in America of editorializing.
Well, and you know what, I'd almost give them a little teeny bit of a pass on that, because this is the story that they have been getting from the people who should know and should be telling us the truth about it. And that is the Board of County Commissioners keep saying that here's the deadline, and here's where we're going to drop off. And so I can see where one would, believing that narrative, would regurgitate a line like that. But this guy knows just as well as I'm sure they do know, just as well as the Board of County Commissioners knows, that this is anybody's guess what's going to happen with that.
So Ray is saying to him the same thing that I did, and wait a minute. Who's writing? You know, who's the subject of this article? It's supposed to be me. It was one of 137,000 candidates, and he's writing this one about Ray, which is not appearing in the newspaper. So it's funny. It's toward the end, but whatever. And so Ray says, if you just want to write it, just go ahead. And Sean Hall responds to him, maybe I just won't write an article about you.
Whatever. Listen, if he's going to write it, injecting his own bias into the article, what good is the article anyway? What is the point?
Fairness is it to say, because somebody doesn't agree with you, supposed reporter, that you're not going to write an article at all because the guy said, wait a minute, you need to be fair.
And this is one of the big things that's happening with media really across the board. Pretense of objectivity is out the window. We're not even pretending that we are objective anymore. Now we're just openly biased. And that's where things are in terms of news reporting. So now, and listen, we're openly biased here, but this is an opinion show. This show is about what I think, and it's about what Dale thinks. Dale fires something at me that I've never seen before, and I react to it, and you get to see it, and that's what the show is about. And vice versa, the same thing with him.
We do let people have their say. We do let them say things, and when there's big controversy, we try to have both sides on, and we universally get criticized by both sides for having the other side on. Okay, and the other thing that we've done, and we made a conscious decision to do this, or a subconscious decision, while we were sleeping. That what we would not do is when we're playing back footage from someone's stump speech, the regular speech that they give, that during these candidates forums, that we would then criticize their stump speech. We decided not to do that now. If it's during the question and answer session or some other kind of thing, or it's something afterwards or whatever, they're fair game, and they should be probably for all of it. But because I'm involved, we decided, okay, we're not going to do that. That was my suggestion, and Mike was like, 1 second behind me. Absolutely, that's what we're going to do. And so we play it back for you, and then you make your own decisions about whether that person's a genius or a lunkhead.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit different than the journalist. It seems like Jim Moore, the Daily Courier, he may not even write the article about the guy because he wouldn't agree with him, because he was arguing with him. You shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way? What kind of article is that? Yeah, Mike's right. No pretense and honesty at all.
Yeah, it's the kind of article they write. I mean, this is what that's how it goes.
So, okay, so we're going to dip back into the weekly business session because there were 2 sets of things that happened during the weekly business session. We played part 1, which was mostly about, and we're going to just have a tail off from that because that was mostly about the procedure that they were going through for 2 public hearings where they weren't doing it right at all. And we're going to end with a couple of comments about that, about the procedure and whether the commissioners should have jumped in and done things and taken a biased point of view on one side or another, regardless of what side you think is right. Should they be biased about it? And then there's
this is a continuation of last night.
Just a little bit, and then Simon Hare had a response, and I couldn't just play his response because you might not have seen last night. So I'm going to play back just a little bit of what some of the audience said, and then Simon Hare's response, pretty defensive, and then a little bit about noise at the airport. Oh, but this has a different ending than you would ever believe was possible. So we're going to start off with one of the people from the audience that had some words for the commissioners about how they've been wasting time and money, and they didn't need to, and people tried to warn them. Even the planning director, even Wally Hicks, tried to warn them, and they weren't listening. Here we go.
My name is Elizabeth Corcoran, and I was one of the parties that did appeal your decision to LUBA. And at the time that we did have all those hearings, back when you made your decision, you said that it wasn't the end, that it probably would be appealed to LUBA. Then you went ahead some reason, and that's why I'm here. I want to ask the question, why did you feel compelled to go ahead and implement the ordinance when you were told by many people, and some people weren't even able to explain their explanation to you, but you bypassed and you went ahead full on and put the ordinance into effect? So my question is, what was your thinking and why was that done? And now why are you backpedaling and coming to another conclusion? I want some answers, because we asked you to wait for the LUBA appeal decision, and there was no way you were going to do that, and you weren't explaining to anyone why. So I would like the answer now.
Okay. Again, I remind folks, this ordinance is to repeal 2015-001. This is not a new ordinance. Nothing is going to be enacted. Nothing's going to be in place. This is to repeal the ordinance. There's not a...
Mr. Chair.
Pardon me, ma'am. Pardon me. You had your chance to speak. Yes.
I think we should just continue with the hearing.
Okay.
If it's okay.
Okay, that's fine. Anybody else want to comment? Yes, ma'am.
This is not our camera work, by the way. It's embarrassing.
Sunny Valley.
Hold it. Yeah, thank you. Did you get that?
Last year, Mr. Black lobbied for ordinance 2015-001 to be passed by you, the commissioners, against many public comments for patience and to wait, along with the well-known fact that this application had been appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals. You saw fit to act on granting him this ordinance while the case was pending. Traditionally, while a case is before LUBA, this county and most others wait on any action to avoid the costly mess that this board has created. This ordinance was based on arrogance and bias and has proven that the will of the people against it, using their collective sense, were correct from the beginning. It's disgusting to watch so much county money and time misused by the very people elected and sworn to do the opposite. Mr. Black has since decided he doesn't want this ordinance and has gone to great lengths to keep people from voting on it by filing suit and having his attorney actually argue that it was going to be repealed. Now here we are, as you act again to do what Mr. Black currently wants, to take now the ordinance away. Over the course of the last few years, I have found that Josephine County is really a laughingstock in many of the state agencies I have had contact with. I have the feeling now, after this latest debacle, that they're not just laughing anymore. They are currently doubled over and splitting their sides open.
Now, I can testify to that personally. You know that when there are things that are coming up that are goofy in this county or against the law, that I, not all the time, but will file with the state saying, listen, Cheryl Walker lectures us, don't be in here saying today, because it's posted on the door, that you can't advocate for any person or any cause during this period of time, and then goes straight into doing it. I mean, right after saying it. So I sent that to the elections board, the state, and I said, and here's the video footage. They laugh at us. Josephine County truly is, I'm not exaggerating. Oh, Josephine County, yeah, right. Well, yeah, right. And I've even had one of them say to me, I've even heard that there, and they don't know who I am. I've even heard that there's a website there called Bad County. And it is, isn't it? And I said, yeah, that's where I live. At the state level, they all know about Josephine County.
I don't think they care. I really don't.
Well, no, they don't care, but
well, the only difference between where they live and here is that here somebody's watching and posting stuff about it, so they occasionally will hear stories about it. That's the only difference at all, between here and wherever it is they live.
Well, you know this for sure about Jackson County. Oh, man. Yeah, so. Well, somebody is watching, and you're watching, and so tell a friend or two about what's happening, would you please? And as Mike has pointed out several times, you've got all kinds of opportunities to take a look at what the vast portfolio of the toolbox are for running for county commissioners. So you've got everybody from fairly repressive, and you probably know who I'm talking about, up through fairly clueless, and you probably know who I'm talking about, and people who are super impressed with themselves. Woohoo! And so you've got
talk about yourself, Dale.
So you've got all kinds of choices of what you want. Now, I have always advocated for the idea of having somebody that's not going to need 9 months of training and indoctrination. Please, if you get elected, don't go to those state-run classes about how to run your county like every other county. Don't go. Stay here and represent people and use common sense.
I think running the county like everyone else runs their county is part of the problem here.
Yeah, buddy.
Certainly should be a fresh and unique perspective as opposed to implanting the program of, how to do it just like everyone else. That's me.
Welcome to the board. Resistance is futile. Please do resist. And don't take 9 months to learn a job. Well, anyway, you've already heard that. Okay, so Simon Hare had a response. This is the part where we didn't get a chance to see this last night. Simon Hare had a response to the people, and I think that some of his responses are sounding more and more like Keith Heck. They're all beleaguered. Cheryl's out. Keith Heck, there's a big question whether he's going to get single digits with his campaign. Don't know. And Simon Hare has already said he's not coming back. Well, he's spending more time out of county than ever before. He's at all these state meetings. Now, why would he be doing that? Because he's dedicated. Well, he's grooming himself for a position on the state level. Anyway, here's what Simon Hare had to say about the last couple of people.
Mr. Chair, I just so it wasn't probably the right time to address it under the legislative action item 1B, and the opponents have left the room, or those who have spoke on that subject matter. I call them opponents. We've been dealing with this for well over a year, and they're faces that live in Sunny Valley, and they're not in favor of this application for an aggregate operation. I think I said it during the hearing, and I don't want to talk about the merits of it, but it's disturbing to me, to people who have to have to resort to an argument of that there's some sort of a conspiracy on behalf of the board and the applicant, legal counsel, our district attorney's office, perhaps even the courts, that we are doing something underhanded behind the backs of the people, serving at the will of just the applicant.
Now, how in the world could they have come up with that conclusion, Mike Jones?
Well, I mean, I get why there's certainly fuel for speculation about such things. You know, so I understand why people might be thinking about it, and he should understand that too. Some of their actions on this particular item have been kind of weird. You know, I mean, obviously the whole passing of the ordinance thing last year was out of order. So I think people have, you know, justification for speculating about that. And listen, if they want to change the perception that people have,
Yes.
then, you know, I mean, that's easy enough to do. Just act differently. You know, you know, let LUBA do its job, and you know, they're obviously going to have recommendations when they're all done, either yay or nay. And so
We
let
all
them,
do that.
yeah. And if you just do that, you'll allow them to take care of it, and that takes the heat off of the BCC. They should be happy about that. And you know, I don't know, they'll either be happy with the outcome, or the people in Sunny Valley will be happy with the outcome. One of the two.
Well,
I can't imagine both.
Process. It's more the process of it. Land Use Board of Appeals aside. Remember, you've all seen the footage. Okay, you watch this show. You've seen the footage where here's Keith Hick lecturing everybody in the audience, but mostly me. Oh, you say that we don't have integrity, and how can you possibly come to the conclusion that we don't have integrity? Why, I don't need that. And then you watch while he and Cheryl go over to the corner and have a low volume discussion with Pat Fahey about county business. It's breaking the law. They're doing it right in front of us. They didn't even have the decency to walk out the door. They could have. They're not thinking. And so why would how could we possibly come to the conclusion that these guys might be dishonest? Well, because we've caught them on tape being dishonest. How could you think that we're lying? Because we've caught them on tape lying. I mean, just flat out lying. How could you think that Wally Hick, well, Wally said, he didn't say you're misinterpreting the video. No. He didn't say that you need more information. No. Wally Hicks, elected legal counsel, said that never happened. You don't have it on tape. You don't have it on tape. We just watched the tape last night, Wally. You don't have it on tape. You don't have it on tape. This is our legal counsel. How can we come to the conclusion that they're dishonest? Because we know that they are, and the state has found them that. And the big thing isn't so much that they made a mistake and that I caught them, Sandy Casanelli caught them, we turned them in. The big thing was they kept telling us, no, we didn't. They haven't found us guilty. We're not in the penalty phase. We're not in the penalty phase. Why do you keep saying we're in the penalty phase? And then they were in the penalty phase while they were saying that, and now they've been penalized. Not much of it, but we told you they wouldn't get much of anything. A letter of education for people who say we're already educated. They've been lying to us, and we caught them red-handed. Well, how can you say that? Because it's true.
And that took a year and a couple of months to do.
Right.
That's really kind of sad. But you know, this is what we can expect from, you know, Oregon Government Ethics Commission. I personally, I really don't understand what the point of pursuing, ethics issues with them any longer, unless there's, it reaches some sort of a higher level, because all it's going to do is waste a bunch of people's time, and you're going to get a meaningless judgment out of them that literally means nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've been found guilty. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
It's
what it emphasizes is that we're on our own. The state's not going to solve our problems. They're
Right.
going to cause more problems than they solve. And the state, nobody's going to rescue us. We're on our own. It's like somebody being out in the county where they're not getting police patrols and never have gotten police patrols, even when they were fully funded. You're on your own. And so are we. And so we're going to need to solve our own problems. And as somebody pointed out a long time ago to me, the first time I contacted the state, I said, what's going on here? And they said, got two things for you. One, and I've told you this before, shine a bright light. Okay, we're doing that. And two, elect different people next time. What's the matter with you guys in Josephine County?
Again, Dale, I got to call you on this, because you're giving the impression that these people are somehow, are morally better than the people that we have down here in office. They are not at all. They don't care who we elect. They're just telling you that to, appease you in some way. They don't care.
Yeah, Mike's right.
And they don't even think these people that you think are bad. They're just jumping through hoops. That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
right.
Anyway.
No, Mike's right. Okay. A little bit more from Simon.
All I can say is I don't know what I could possibly get out of that. Let's just figure it out, people. I don't buy enough aggregate, and I'm certainly not.
It's not about buying aggregates.
Sunny Valley, that's way too far.
It's about buying influence.
I hope that's the right use of that word. That people would resort to such little arguments in a hearing.
Gnats in the room.
And it's not what we're about. And we're trying to do the right thing up here. Luba heard this heard this case, this appeal. They remanded it on 6 elements. One, they needed more information. They wanted us to explore more information on the deer habitat, and their migratory pattern. And most of the others were administrative. So it's not as though we were in error on the merits of the application. And so it just, on our decision as the board, then they want us to go in a remand and have an unbiased opinion on this. And I'm going to try diligently. I will do my best, but I'm just
not anymore.
It doesn't sit well for people to come here and demean my character, my judgment. That's challenging, because I believe that I have done a really great job of hearing these land use hearings throughout my tenure on this board, and being as unbiased as possible in this process. And I feel badly for people who have to resort to such things.
You notice he's berating these people when they have no opportunity to respond.
He waited. He could have done it immediately, but he didn't.
Yeah, right. And so, you throw that in your, list of criteria for determining this guy's character. Whatever.
Well, once you've been around for a little while, or you watched this show for a little while, you'll probably remember that when I caught Simon Hare just flat out lying about the previous sheriff, that I came in and started playing back the video that showed exactly what it was that he said. And he cut the microphone. First time they ever did that. Because he did not want you to hear that he had lied. That's Simon Hare. That's the real Simon Hare. Cut the microphone. Okay, one more topic for this evening. Now, you probably think you heard everything there is to hear about noise and the IV from helicopters. And, some people think, well, they're probably right. They want a quiet lifestyle. That's why they moved there. Well, they certainly didn't move to the big city of Grants Pass. Yeah.
They did move next to an airport, though.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. But some of those people have been there, that property has been there, or the ownership in their family has been there before there was an airport. That's going back a long way. Most of them did not, okay? And you may think, as a lot of people do, well, they're kind of complainers and stuff like that. But keep in mind that the people who came roaring in at the last moment to say what a great idea it was were organized by Cheryl Walker and Larry Graves. But it was too late. It was just that much too late, because they had already gotten a response from Erickson, Aircrane, or Erickson Aviation now. And so now, but there's a different ending to this than you would have expected. So here's a fellow with an unusual name. Okay, so we got people in our county with unusual names. Yeah, it's a little bit of an unusual name.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Sunrise Ocean, and I live in the Illinois Valley, more specifically O'Brien off of Waldo Road. I have two grievances here. One, it's a formal complaint regarding Erickson Aviation training over residential areas of the Illinois Valley. Beginning on March 31st, 2016, Erickson Aviation has initiated an unprecedented run of nearly 14 consecutive days of flight training over the populated residential areas of the Illinois Valley. Although a familiar sound in the valley during the fire season, this level of activity during the off-season has never been witnessed in the 11 years of my life as a resident of the Illinois Valley. The flight path of their helicopter operations has occupied airspace over many residential areas that are not in the immediate vicinity of the airport. The residential areas of Rockydale Road, Caves Highway, Holland Loop, and Dick George Road have been subject to excessive noise from repetitious out-of-season helicopter operations, as well the Kenrose Lane, Logan Cut residential area, and the Nowie Way, Lone Mountain, and Waldo Road areas have been plagued by repetitive circling at relatively low altitudes. The helicopter being flown is identified as the S-64 Skycrane and does not comply with the FAA Stage 3 noise standards for helicopter flight in the U.S.
Now, this is a contentious issue. Larry Graves, airports manager, has sworn up and down that of course it's all okay, but as other research shows, and then now who do you believe, no, it's not okay. And so somebody went out there, and we played the videotape here for you. We put it up as an independent video as well with a decimal meter, and it was way over the accepted limits for human hearing. And this helicopter was not on top of the people. It was, over at a bit of a distance and obviously in the air. And it was well beyond, and Larry Graves, the airports manager, said it never, ever, ever does that. We were looking at the decimal meter, and it was doing that. So regardless of what you think about his motivations or the research, scholarly research he's done, it does not match with the scientific evidence. So when this fellow says, I wouldn't have known which to believe, but when this fellow says it doesn't meet the standards, well, this one helicopter doesn't look like it does.
And should therefore confine their training activities to private training grounds away from inhabited areas. To the west of Illinois Valley Airport lies the Kalmiopsis Wilderness Area, which is a completely uninhabited wildland that is the exact terrain that real-life firefighting operations will be taking place in. The inhabited space of the Illinois Valley is not an appropriate training ground for such activities and leads to the perception that not choosing to fly to the west of the airport into the Kalmiopsis wildland is a deliberate act of harassment and intimidation perpetrated to disrupt the relatively peaceful existence we all cherish here in our valley during the non-fire season.
Now, hold on a second.
Yeah, that's a stretching it just a little bit. Why? To what end?
Okay.
Make people mad?
You know what? So let's look at the context, because that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
When the residents there, the residents that show up, and there's all kinds of statements from the history of America saying, the people who show up are the ones that get heard or whatever, so you can say, well, there's 100,000 people here and there's millions. Yeah, you can say that. But I mean, if you really do care, you're going to show up. And they showed up and they said that they weren't happy with this, and that they have a quiet lifestyle, and etc. And so that they bedroom community, and they moved there just so they could get peace and quiet. And yes, they're used to hearing. He said that at the beginning of this. They were used to hearing helicopters of our area. That's not the problem. We know that there are also fires. They've said in the past we know that they need training. The question is, do you want the world's loudest helicopter, which apparently it's even louder than Russian helicopters? Do you want them flying over your area for 14 days in a row? Maybe not, but there's a surprise ending to this, and we'll see. But don't forget now that when they made this decision, do you remember, Mike, what Larry Graves, the airports manager, what his reaction was to this feedback from the public that went directly to Erickson and nixed this whole deal? Do you remember what his reaction was?
I know that he wasn't very happy about it.
No, he wasn't.
No.
He said that he wanted to spank. What? He wanted to spank the residents of the Illinois Valley. He said this was based on ignorance. He said this was all wrong. He said that maybe the Smoke Jumpers Museum, who did not jump up to his benefit, that maybe they should be reviewed by the FAA for revoking of everything that they do at the airport.
Yeah, isn't that special?
Oh, the Smoke Jumpers?
That's how politics goes, I guess. Well, as I observed it being there, they were just running the meeting. They weren't putting words in people's mouths, and I don't believe that it was the Smoke Jumpers that contacted Erickson either. It was, some of the citizens that were there that contacted Erickson and talked to them.
Correct.
So.
The Smoke Jumpers weren't running the meeting, but they had a person from the Smoke Jumpers Museum that was on the board, the airport's board, and appointed by the commissioners, because they talk about what a great job they're doing as commissioners, kind of taking credit for something that they didn't have a lot to, because Smoke Jumpers have had to fight against the county for years. They've talked about shutting them down several times because the previous airport manager was so difficult to work with. What a pill that guy was. And this was supposed to be a breath of fresh air. Well, this guy, I mean, he's got a very strong strain of retaliation to him. You may recall that this is the same fellow that was calling this fellow said, hey, I think I'm paying too much for my rent. And I know what he said because I've heard it. And he was okay, a little pesky guy, but okay, he wasn't. And Larry Graves, I'm going to F you and you're trying to F me and F this and F that. And hey, wait a minute. What are you doing? You're a public servant here. You're on the employment of I'm going to F and F and F. And so the guy came up to the county commission and he said, I don't think I should be treated this way. I just want this resolution to my case. And I spoke up for him, saying, I don't think the county employees should be saying F you, F this. Cheryl Walker's response was, I would value, I'm paraphrasing, I would value the life of Larry Graves over your continuing existence, Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, well, that's Cheryl Walker, whatever.
So now this guy then went back to the fellow that he had, and apparently Cheryl said, hey, don't do that kind of stuff, right? So he goes back to that guy and he's laughing with this guy. We're talking about Larry Graves now. He's laughing with that guy and he says, yeah, I got your complaint. I heard about your complaint. I just want you to know I got my lecture. And now I'm here and I'm saying, F you, F this, F that, just what are you going to do about it? F you. Really? What a lovely response. That's Larry Graves. So,
however, I got to tell you, if you're ever in a situation where you're locked in, I mean, this guy owned hangars out at the airport. You are really, that's a bad decision to make in my personal estimation, because you're under the thumb of whoever the airport manager is. And if they want to make your life miserable, they can. And
this guy does want to.
Well, so he took and placed a target on his own back. And I'm not saying that he wasn't right in objecting to it, but this is the situation you're dealing with here. There is no justice in this situation.
Not in this administration.
No, there isn't. And you're not going to, the thing is the bad guys in this particular situation are always going to win. So you're better off not engaging them, to be honest. In that particular situation, this is a little bit different. See, I can criticize government. I don't have interactions with them on a daily basis. They can't do that much to me, you know. So
they've tried
that guy.
Yeah. Well, that's why I came up with the analogy. This particular situation of the bucket of vanilla ice cream. Oh, vanilla ice cream. It's got a fudge swirl in the middle, except it's not fudge. So do you still want some? It's not that Larry Graves, it's not that he never does anything good. Of course he does. But still got that fudge swirl in the middle. Now we know, because since we found out more information directly through the commissioner's office, which, you know, we have sources, that that the commissioners and Larry Graves, one commissioner in particular, Cheryl Walker, had actually reached out to Erickson and said, why don't you move here with your helicopter? And they were like, oh, okay. They recruited them. This wasn't Erickson looking around saying, well, we get to go to any airport we want to. After all, it is an airport. They actively recruited them, which then leads to a question, because they said at the time they didn't. And that was a lie. Okay, sorry to use the word again. It was a lie. Yes, they did. And so now the question is, what we don't know, but based on all the previous evidence is Larry Graves inviting, we don't know, Erickson to come 14 days in a row and buzz around the whole thing. Hey, you know, let's teach these people a lesson. That's what the question is. Are they being taught a lesson?
Okay. What motivation would Erickson have for doing that? For going along with Larry Graves to try and. Yeah, okay.
Maybe they're unhappy. Maybe they're being ginned up by Larry Graves. I don't know. This guy's pointed out. So, wouldn't it make more sense to go over to the county office?
Right. So Larry Graves calls them up on the phone and says, hey, listen, you know, what I really like you to do is to come down here and punish these people who have done the thing that I don't want them to do.
That's
and Erickson's going to go along with that.
They got to fly somewhere.
That's strange. Yeah, it's strange credulity, if you ask me.
Could it be some kind of agreement for the future? Hey, you know, once this dies down, we're going to do this other thing. I don't know. But see, that's the kind of craziness that this kind of stuff leads to. You know, if you hear that Larry Graves has said F you to somebody else, are you going to believe it or maybe not believe it? What's more likely? That he's continuing the kind of stuff he's done in the past, or that he has
a track record.
Yes.
Yeah.
Said he wanted to spank the residents of the Illinois Valley.
Okay.
Is this the spanking? I don't know. But see, that's what happens when you do these kinds of things, is that people like us, people like me, speculate about, well, what could possibly be the motivation for doing this? It's got to be due to something. Anyway, here's a little bit more from Sunrise Ocean.
The Illinois Valley Airport acts as a seasonal staging area for Oregon Department of Forestry and U.S. Forest Service contracted fire suppression helicopter operations from June until October. As a homeowner and resident of the Illinois Valley for 11 years, this off-season training activity will not be tolerated in our residential airspace. A formal complaint has been filed with the airport manager, as well as Erickson Aviation and the Federal Aviation Administration regarding these matters. Thank you for your attention to your duty to serve the interest of the public. My second grievance is against the airport manager, Larry Graves, and I will cut to the chase. The Illinois Valley Airport's manager perhaps has looked beyond the fact that he is a public employee and sits as airport manager to represent the citizens of this county in all airport matters. He is certainly within his right to seek out and recommend business opportunities for the airport, but his obligation is also to listen to public concerns regarding any proposed business venture and support the decision of the majority of citizens, even if he may personally disagree with their wishes. He serves the public interest and not his own personal interests or those of Erickson Aviation. If he feels that he cannot represent the public in an unbiased manner, then he should step down from his position so that others can be appointed who truly care about the citizens they represent. And I have two
Just hand them
things
the
to submit.
secretary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
They don't allow anybody to hand the materials anymore. Now it has to go to the secretary, and then she can hand it to him.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. So I watched that and I went, well, I'm still kind of thinking, might be just, I don't know how much hyperbole is involved in this. Are they being oversensitive? And then, to me, the interesting twist came from Simon Hare right after that. Listen to this.
Mr. Ocean, I think you outlined in your explanation of your concerns and your grievances. The FAA is probably the most likely authority with governing airspace. We would manage the airport and access, but I don't know that they're necessarily touching down every time. And even if they were, it would be really hard for us to say for a public airport that you're not allowed to do it maybe during certain hours, or you've used it too much or something. I don't know. We can explore that. But I think the FAA is the rightful agency of jurisdiction for your concern. I can't disagree. I've been out there a couple of times, and it seems to be non-seasonal for them. And I hope it's not in retribution. I know that everybody didn't feel the same. I think the community was kind of split on the issue. My opinion is that it was less than ideal for an economic driver at the airport. The serenity of the valley is something that's that's pretty widely known and is an asset out there. But we're just going to have to find that fine line of how do we bring in logical, reasonable economy, but not one step back or two steps forward and three steps back kind of a thing. So we'll have to work on that. This is going to sound kind of strange for a lot of people, but until you sit in this seat, you may not understand how structurally a county or a city works. Their employees do not work for the citizens of Josephine County. There are 3 people, specifically the Board of Commissioners, that work hired and fired by the people of the county. We're the CEOs. We don't have an administrator. We hire and fire the staff and put them on plan of action or whatever. So there's a degree of separation. All elected officials have that discretion. So there isn't an officer. They're public servants, but who they actually report to as their boss is the sheriff. They don't report to me. They're not.
No, they don't report to the sheriff. Well, I don't know why he went down that road. That's just wrong, but don't get distracted by that.
Employed by me. They're employed by the sheriff. But otherwise, the employees of the county report to the board. And but we'll definitely look into this matter of. I know that Larry has good intentions, and sometimes they just get a little too anxious in a direction. I know his intent is really good and positive for the Illinois Valley, and frankly, I'm impressed by how much he does. If you do disagree with that issue, take it aside. The other elements that he's been a phenomenal champion of elements at the Ivy Airport really, I think, stand for his performance as an airport manager, both at Grants Pass and Ivy. So I don't want to take one element and say, well, the guy's got to go because he disagreed with this, and maybe he was more aggressive than pursuing this and stuff.
Wow, kind of seems like Simon doesn't really know whether that guy is right or not. That's a little odd, And you know what? It may well be that Larry is a great airport manager. I really don't know. I have no idea of knowing whether he's a fantastic airport man. I know that his bedside manner is probably not all that good. From what I've heard, That's pretty clear. But it's also true that Simon probably has very little experience in judging one airport manager against another, because we only have one. And so he may not have experienced what a good airport manager looks like. And so he would judge this guy to be a good one, even though he stinks badly. Who knows? I don't really know. We'll leave that to judgment to somebody else.
That's what placed these two clips way out of the ordinary. It was Simon's response to it. And this never would have happened if Cheryl had been at this meeting.
Because she's the liaison.
Right. And she would have gone off for 10 minutes about what a wonderful guy he is, no matter what he says. Yeah. Well, she's done it.
Yeah. No, that's true. I've been there when it happened.
Right. So, so that's our show for this evening. Now, so as I'd mentioned before, what's going to happen is we're going to be adding on to the candidates' information. And we'll be all this week. We'll be appearing at a theater near you. And we're going to share with you this information about what the various candidates are saying. We're going to be as scrupulously fair as we can possibly be. I'm anticipating that the Courier will not be. I think I can guarantee that the editor of the IV News will not be. But hey, you take your lumps as you get them. And so we will show you these things and put them into context for you. And hopefully the Courier has more questions to ask than, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? And there's going to be a heavy emphasis on why aren't you declaring an emergency immediately? Everybody knows we must have a levy, and for you to have a different idea is just makes you a fool. This is basically what I was told.
Mm-hmm.
So, at some point, Mike, I want to do a show about proper funding. I want to do a show. I wrote down a note to myself: permanent funding. What is permanent funding? We have 58 cents, 66 if you count the animal shelter. 58 cents is our permanent funding. Now, there are people who don't like that, but that's our permanent funding. Now the question is, if you want more money as the head of the juvenile shelter, how much more money you want and what are you going to spend it on? And you've seen they're not answering that question. They don't want to answer that question. As a matter of fact, we sat down in the meetings, and you've seen the tape where the commissioner said 2 levies ago, let's keep the spending of the money purposely vague. So they were asked at the LPSC meeting, how much money do you want? What's the proper level? And they will not answer. You know what? I'm not giving them any more money until they at least answer that question. How much money do you want? What are you going to spend it on? They don't want to answer.
Yeah. I think the truth is they don't know. They don't know how much money you need. Listen, this is why I'm kind of in favor of this privatization option. And you know what? You do that down in Cave Junction, and then if it works out real good, you threaten to go county-wide with it and just eliminate the sheriff's position. And it's not that I'm wanting to do that. Is that I want to put fear in the heart of the sheriff that, hey, if I don't start doing my job with the funds that are given me, I'm going to,
as he promised to do when he was elected,
as he promised to do, then I'm going to get canned. And when you enter competition in, all of a sudden, all the little things you've been nattering about disappear, and you start going, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. That's what happens. So we'll see. If anybody, makes a motion to move in that direction, that would be I think it's a good idea, because I don't think they're getting their money's worth down there in CJ right now out of that contract deputy.
They don't. That's right.
For the same amount of money, they could be getting a lot better than that. And, I just think that's kind of a sad story. They should be getting something just for the taxes that they're paying, but they're paying $160,000 additionally, and they're still not getting that deputy for the full amount of time that they're paying for. So there's some problems there that really need to be addressed. And
never have, and they never have, even at full funding. So I'm saying we do have permanent funding. It's a low number, but we should be talking to people about moving here because we've got low property taxes. 58 cents. Now, what do you do when you've got a number where maybe a number of people might say, hey, that's not enough? You cut back on the services. You think we don't know that? Of course we know that. So here's what we're willing to cut back to. Well, I don't like that. Well, you lost the vote. Well, I don't like it. When do we win? As the newspaper guy said to me, well, when does a 47% win?
Yeah. You know,
America.
Somewhere a memo went out. It wasn't that long ago that, you know, the 47% need to get theirs. That, you know, what about the 47%? And, you know, so I've been hearing this thing all over the place. So what is this? Everybody is saying, all the you know, levy pusher people are all saying this. Wow. They're just trying to rewrite American history.
That's right.
Suit their liking. It's really bizarre. But no, I'm telling you, you threaten these people with privatization. Just go listen. You know what? You've had your little thing. We've listened to the way you want to do business, and all you do is tell us how you can't do. You can't do. I'd be willing to bet that a private organization is not going to tell you what you can't do. They're going to tell you what you can do for the money that you have. And you know what? I say let's give them an opportunity to do it, and see if these poor other jerks will snap out of their little haze that they're in.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Tomorrow night, if we're all fortunate, and we don't know till the last moment, you know this about us already. And if it turns out that you turn in at 7 o'clock and, hey, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? You've watched the show often enough to know, well, they probably had some technical problem. Maybe somebody pulled one of the plugs. We don't know. Okay, we don't know. But we're going to do the best that we can all week to carry everything live. Woohoo! So see you there. All the cool kids will be there.